Facing cancer doesn't mean you are now only the cancer patient. So often we hear those with cancer share the need to feel seen, to feel understood, and not feel alone. So whether you are facing cancer yourself or supporting someone who is, join us. My name is Susan Larkin. We are Facing Cancer Together. For so many years, there were basically two options for someone facing cancer. Treatment was successful, or it wasn't. But now, with the advancement in treatments and a greater understanding of the disease, there are people who are living with cancer. But what does that mean? Jules Whish joins us and shares how she is figuring it out as she goes.
My name is Jules Whish. I was diagnosed at age 37 in October of 2021 with stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma, which is a cancer of the bile duct.
What do you think people out there don't necessarily understand, or what are those misconceptions around stage 4? What do you need to explain to people sometimes?
I think the biggest thing is it's obviously really scary hearing that someone has stage 4 cancer, because that's essentially the worst stage. It just means that you have cancer in multiple organs, and generally speaking, it's incurable, so that you're going to have cancer for your life. But that doesn't mean that your life is going to be 1 year from now or 2 years from now. It's just that people can live with cancer the way they can live with diabetes or like another chronic illness. When we finally did get the official diagnosis, that was what my doctor had said to me, like, our goal is to give you a good life. You are going to live with cancer the way someone lives with diabetes. That was like the example she gave. And I think, I know a lot of people that have been living with stage 4 cancer for a lot of years, specifically an amazing woman that I used to work with. She just celebrated 10 years of a stage 4 diagnosis. And it's different, obviously, for everyone, depending on treatment and your age and if you have any other illnesses and things like that. But, people do live for a long time with stage 4. And also people do end up having no evidence of disease. There's lots of people that I've read about or even met and connected with online who were told that they would always have cancer, and right now they don't. I even heard that in the States specifically, they often don't give a prognosis because they find people will just live, like, in their head. It's like if you told someone you had 6 months to live, then they're like, okay, I only have 6 months left. But then 5 years later, it's like, so they don't want people to just get it in their head that they only have that much time. It's like things can change so much. My dad passed away from complications from Crohn's disease. This was in 2001. And back then there was just so little treatment options. There just wasn't a lot out there. And over time, they've just created so many new drugs and infusions and things that people can get that has saved, thousands of people's lives. We don't know what treatment is on the horizon. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months or year that could potentially cure these, cancers that are so aggressive. So I always try to keep it in the back of my mind that there's, hopefully always going to be new treatments and new things happening. And I think people need to understand too, there's lots of different options for treatment. And there's sort of the phrase that a lot of people use online is stage 4 needs more. And it's just because a lot of the time we're just sort of dismissed. I had a moment today, I was like, oh, we're going out west for a week, and I've been looking just to get additional medical insurance because if I'm not covered if something happens with me cancer related. And I've talked to 5 places today. No one will cover you if you're stage 4 cancer. So that's also just assuming that someone with stage 4 cancer is never going to go it. You just can't go anywhere if you have to. But it's look at me. I'm totally I feel totally great. I feel fine. I'm the one guy, he said to me, well, in the last 3 months, have you had scans or anything? I said, of course I have. And he's like, well, then we wouldn't be able to cover you if something happened. I said, well, ironically enough, my scan showed that my cancer is stable, but it doesn't matter what happened with the scan. It's the fact that I had the scan in 3 months. So it's just things like this. It's just the sort of stigma around stage 4.
And the systems are just against it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's disappointing.
Are you still going to go out west?
I'm still going. I'll find a way. And I think it's one of those things where you just realize like you'd just never be able to do anything again if you just went by the rules of all, you know what I mean? Like the biggest thing is that my doctor gave me the green light to go. And she's like, you're on a break from treatment. Your blood work looks great. You're well enough to go. And to me, that's what's most important. Otherwise, I just feel like it would just stop you from living all aspects of your life. Really, like cancer would find a way. So.
You know, in talking to you, in reading, you know, following you on Instagram, joy and positivity. Just look at your smile. I just, joy and positivity just radiate from your smile, from your voice, from everything that you do.
Thank you so much.
Is that who you've always been?
It actually is. And I say this often. Obviously, getting a stage 4 cancer diagnosis is like the worst thing ever. But I just think, wow, like, what about all the people that aren't positive at it? Like, I worry for the people that have a hard time already, even though it happened to me. Obviously, it sucks. But I just felt like, oh, now is probably not the time to not be a really positive person, because I've been this way my whole life. And it's just something that I feel like so many people know me for, and it's something that's so important to me. And I just felt, obviously, I say to people, like, there are so many moments where it's really hard to be like that. And you can have days where you're feeling really rough and things, you know, aren't going your way. It's not like everything's sunshine and rainbows, but my thought is just, you have to find your way back. So maybe it's going to take a day, maybe it's going to take a week, maybe it's going to take 2 weeks, but you just have to find your way back to that mindset. And obviously, you know, it's not easy, but my biggest thing when it comes to that kind of stuff is I know that I can't cure my cancer with my optimism and my joy and my positivity, but I know that I can help it. And I know that, like, I've read so many different things about your mindset and like your mental health and your, you know, what your brain thinks sends messages to your all different parts of your body. I created a career on having that sort of joyful, positive attitude. And it's been such a big part of my life for so long that now I'm finding a way to incorporate, you know, this cancer diagnosis and all the things I'm going through and finding out how I can help other people and hope that they can sort of adopt some of that mindset.
You were dropping little notes. Did someone tell me about that?
Yeah. I leave little notes around Princess Margaret, just like little positive affirmations and little bags of confetti and stuff for people. This is like the type of thing that I've done all the time, but I feel like, you know, they needed even more there. So yeah, I'll just put like little like affirmations or quotes that I really love, and I'll like stick them on the mirrors in the washroom at Princess Margaret or leave them in like the chemo waiting room. And it's just been so nice. People are always so like thankful, and I just feel like, I don't know, it just feels so natural for me to do that. And I want to find more ways that I can do that and support people in person. I think it's so nice to connect with other people that are going through something so similar.
Before you were diagnosed and as you live with cancer, Jules, you are a content creator. That is your job.
Yeah. I mean, it's been aspects of my professional job for sure. And it's just been something that I've loved to do on my own time for the last, I don't know, now that I'm thinking about it, like probably close to 15 years. I started blogging, you know, way back in the day when, you know, before we had Instagram and Twitter and all of like the social media, you know, apps that we're so used to using now. So I just kind of started blogging just to document my life and just share some positivity online. That eventually just sort of evolves into sort of my own brand that I've been building over the years. And it's just something that I've always really loved to do. And you know, a big part of it has been to share just positivity and optimistic outlooks online, just in general, anything that, you know, people are going through. Obviously, the pandemic was a time that I really wanted to focus on that, to help people through that, even like having kids. So I have a son that's 3.5. His name is Otis. And I love to share that kind of thing. And then, of course, being diagnosed with cancer, which was something that I didn't ever think, you know, was going to happen to me, especially at such a young age. So it was something that it felt really natural to me to share my, you know, what was happening to me with everything online. And I know that that's not for everyone, but for me, it just felt if I wasn't going to share it, I don't know what else I could possibly share because it became such a big part of my life so quickly that it would just feel so insincere to be sharing all the other aspects of my life without this, big, huge part of my life that just sort of took everything over.
That stage when something's wrong, you've been to the doctor, you're waiting to find out what it is. And here you are typically sharing so much of your life externally, but you've got this unknown state that you're in right now. How did you approach that at that stage?
Everyone has, I think, a different sort of experience for being diagnosed. Like for some people, it's, feeling unwell or off for months or years and maybe being dismissed because you're young and you're like otherwise healthy. My situation is quite unique because I really didn't have any symptoms or any reason to believe that I had cancer or stage 4 cancer, even more so. So it all happened quite quickly in a really short period of time. The time that I went to the doctor just for a general check-in to being diagnosed with cancer was probably 3 weeks. It was very short. In that time, I was sharing a little bit, definitely not as much as usual. I, started getting a couple friends sort of checking in to see if everything was okay because I hadn't been posting as often. And because I, usually share pretty often, people had noticed that. Not a lot of people knew that we were even going through the tests or anything because we were just, hopeful that it wasn't going to be anything. It was everything was going to be okay. We would hopefully not even have to, share all this kind of stuff with people. The time I got diagnosed to when I shared online was probably about 2 weeks later after the initial diagnosis, told, close friends and family and stuff like that first, before we shared it online. I think that is a really, really tough situation for people if they, choose to want to share it, is just sort of waiting in limbo and feeling like anything that you post just seems so irrelevant and unimportant because it's just what you're going through is just so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you thinking about when you wrote in that first post? How many drafts did you go through? What were you thinking kind of before you hit publish?
Yeah. I thought about it a lot. I was really, I knew that I wanted to share something. I knew that people were going to be very shocked and, stressed out, which of course they were. I had made the decision not to share the type of cancer that I had or the stage at that point, because I just felt like it's not, it's not good. And the no cancer is good, but this cancer is specifically very aggressive with a low survival rate. I just didn't want people to be even more triggered by it, and immediately I know that if someone else shared some sort of diagnosis that I didn't understand, my first thought would be to Google it and learn more about it. I just thought it's already going to be so overwhelming for all of us. So that was just a way for me to sort of still be able to share a part of the journey, but, keep part of it sort of with our close friends and family that could understand it a bit better. I was like, what picture do you post? So I just created a graphic on Canva that just said, I need you. And then the caption had, all the details. So it was actually over time, even a couple weeks in, there were some people that were like, I just saw your cute graphic and I was kind of, scrolling and I didn't end up reading the caption. I didn't understand what was happening. So over time, people were finding out because they thought oh, it's just a cute post. It could have been about anything. So obviously it was so overwhelming, just hundreds and hundreds of comments and shares and stuff like that. But I was just more so opening the floor to my community and people around me to be hey, I'm welcoming all of your love and prayers and anything that you're willing to give me, which is not something that I know that everyone feels comfortable doing. But that was just sort of my mindset. I just thought why not get these, couple thousand people that I've, built in my community to be thinking of me and, praying for me and just doing, whatever it is that they feel can support me and my family during such a rough time.
Yeah. What surprised you? You hit send or post on that posting. You made it public.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I think I like every time I've kind of shared any big updates or different, kind of things around the cancer, I feel like I never quite mentally prepare myself for how much love we're going to get. Like, you expect your close friends and family to support you, of course, when you're going through something like this, which like is obviously so amazing, but just so many people that I didn't know in person, like just people that I knew from Instagram and like the internet were just so, touched by the post and wanted to help out. And I think it was just so nice to see how much people were just showing up and wanting to support. That was just like, yeah, that was something that was actually really like just shocking and just so, so lovely.
And you talked about, you've got 4,000 plus followers at this time, but you've got your small group, your group of friends, close friends in your family. How did you find that balance of what you shared with that group and the timing of that group, because, did you ever have someone who said, I'm really hurt, I found this out, whatever that might be, they found something out en masse and they thought they were part of the smaller group? Or how did you manage those closer circles?
Yeah, I think it's definitely tough. Like, everyone's so different. I have just so many like friend groups from different stages of my life, like different places that I've worked and like my high school friends and like all these different groups. And like the way that we kind of chose to do it was just sort of reaching out to like a handful of people that we're really close with, that we sort of asked them to be like, sort of like, like a team captain, I call it, like, just for lack of a better term, but just sort of share everyone from that group, like create like a WhatsApp group or like a text or email thread, whatever was easiest, just to kind of update them on what was happening, especially at the start when we were going through, because I was diagnosed, of course, and we shared that, but it did take quite a bit of time to do testing and know what my primary cancer was and just figure out treatment and all those sorts of things. So we personally did it that way. And it's been really, I think it really worked for us. And it was just like a really, good way to try to share it with as many people as possible without sharing too much or too little. And, I think everyone's different. I've heard people using like Facebook groups or email threads, and I would basically write the update and I would send it to them directly, and then they would send it to the group of people. And I feel like that worked really well for us. It's just if there's a little bit more information that I don't feel comfortable sharing with like everyone, I just try to provide little updates in between here and there with my closer group of friends so that they can sort of know what's going on and sort of get an update.
You were talking earlier about, when you went quiet for those 3 weeks and people were kind of reaching out and saying, hey, is it okay? You've had so many ups and downs in your cancer journey. How do you manage it when you want to take a break? Like, what have you learned?
I don't know. That's a great question. And I feel like I'm still kind of figuring that out. I think for me, and a lot of people say like, don't feel pressure. Like, you don't owe anyone anything to update. And it's not about that. It's just, I am the type of person that wants to know, and I worry about people, and I'm like always thinking about them. And I know that so many people are doing that for me. So I just think I have just been, I always try to pop on, even on my story, even if it's something quick, just to kind of say like, hey, it's been, a rough couple weeks, but we're getting through it, and I'm not going to be as active, but I'm still here if you want to, text me or anything like that. Like, things are okay. I have noticed that if I don't post, people definitely are wondering what's happening, or they, like, if it's someone that's closer with me, they'll send me a text just to kind of get an update. I don't necessarily feel like pressure to always have to post. I just know that people want to know that everything's okay. And I just want to be able to provide them a little update, just to kind of fill them in. And because there's so many ups and downs, and with particularly stage 4 cancer, when you're in active treatment so much, there's so much time in between each, type of treatment you're going to get. It's like, you have to go through all these tests and you have to get scans again. And then you have to, like, if you want to be on like a clinical trial, you have to go through so much testing. And sometimes there just aren't real updates or answers. So I've learned to not quite share things just yet. Cause like I used to be like, oh, I can share that this is happening. But then it's like, by the time I'm ready to share it, it already changes. So I've learned that like, I just have to wait it out a little bit longer to be able to provide a bit more context. And that would be a time that I would probably post something on the close friend story and be like, hey, just an update for all of you. Like, we're still waiting, you know, we don't know what's going on yet. Like, hopefully we're going to find out soon. And then I've learned just once I actually get a firm, you know, answer from my doctor and that everything's like, you know, in motion, then I can update everyone else so that they can know what's going on.
It's a lot of management.
It is. I'm like, truly, like, cancer is a full-time job. Like, it's so much work, like just advocating for yourself and following up on stuff. Like, obviously the doctors and everyone are, you know, they're amazing, but they have a lot of people. There's a lot of things that they have to do all the time. And there's a lot of little things in between that happen that you have to advocate for yourself and follow up about. And yeah, and even just, you know, being able to update all your loved ones and kind of figure that out. It's, you know, it's pretty constant. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
You were telling me earlier that about your mom and your brothers. What is it like navigating, talking to your family? Like, what have you learned about that? Otis was quite young. He still is quite young.
Yeah.
But how do you manage that family, that one-on-one communication?
I'm really close with my family, and they've been really supportive, and they know so much of what's going on that it's, I think, a little bit easier to communicate with them. Like, I know some people are, even with like their close family members, like a little bit more like reserved and like, you know, they don't want to share as much. But I'm pretty open with, you know, how I'm feeling and if things are rough. And, you know, sometimes if we have like, you know, a family outing planned or something like that, and I'm not feeling good, it's just like, I was like, just a heads up, this is how I'm feeling. And I joked because I'm like, I created a new family tradition where I go to Emerge every time we all get together, because that happened like on Family Day weekend and then Easter weekend. I was like, I got to stop this trend. But yeah, they've been really, really good. And yeah, it's been really nice.
I love that you tell them ahead of time how you're doing.
Yeah. I think it's just important. And like, and I try to do that with people in general. Like, I think everyone's really different with like whether or not they want to see people, for example. I am just like the ultimate extrovert that loves being around people, that it's like cancer's not going to change that for me. Like, I'm never going to feel better alone. That's just me. And I know a lot of people don't feel that way, especially when they're not feeling good. But I like, if I had plans with someone, they were going to come over and have a little visit and I'm not feeling great, like 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to cancel, but I'm just going to say like, hey, I'm not feeling great. So like, let's just chill and like we'll just like watch a movie and hang on. And I'd rather just like be around you and not feel great than just like not feel great and just be sitting alone.
I love that you let them know and you tell them what you need.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If someone, you know, is listening to this and they're thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to share this publicly. Should I go on social? Should I share this? What are some of the things you'd suggest people kind of think about beforehand and some of the things they might get out of it that they haven't thought about before? You know, whether it's 20 people or 4,000 followers, whatever that might be.
That's a great question. I think everyone's so different. I think the biggest thing is just like, if it didn't feel natural before and it's not something you love doing, then like, I think maybe it's not going to change when you're like going through a cancer diagnosis. But then on the other hand, I think there's so much room for like community and like connecting with people. That's why I've loved social media just in general, is I love creating a community of people. Like, it's such an amazing feeling to know that people are, you know, supporting you and they don't even know you, but they feel like they do because they've been following you for so long. And I think everyone's different in the way they connect with people or the way they sort of find their support. And for me, I think also like, because I was diagnosed like in pretty much like the thick of COVID, it was really hard, especially the first kind of like 10 months of my diagnosis and like treatment, because like COVID was still quite intense. There was a lot of restrictions. Obviously, when you're immunocompromised, you have to be even more careful. You're going to the hospital all the time. And it's really hard, like connecting with people, and there were like different virtual groups and stuff like that. And I'm just someone, especially by that point, I was so over like the virtual meetups and stuff like that. And because I'm such a people person, I didn't find them necessarily helpful for me. But I found, connecting with someone on like Instagram, for example, it was like so much easier to just message with them and find different people to follow and feel good about. And I think it takes some time to kind of figure out what you want to consume and how you want to consume it. And it's okay if you change your mind along the way, or you want to, like, I think, you follow specific accounts and you think, oh, this is like a cancer related account. It's going to be great for me. But then over time, you're like, no, actually, it's not at all, because it doesn't make me feel good when I'm like looking at it. So I think a big part of it is just like protecting your, peace, like figuring out what works for you, what makes you feel good online, what accounts like, and you could just not follow any cancer related accounts. That's okay too. Like if that doesn't make you feel good, like don't feel like you have to be a part of the community or active in it, because there's just like, it just doesn't work for everyone. There's no one size fits all kind of thing.
Thank you, Jules, for sharing.
No
Thank
problem.
you so much for being part of this conversation. I think people listening to you will be inspired, but also take to heart that everybody's going to be different. Everyone's going to react differently, and you might react differently different days, and that's okay too.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
As Jules says, every person and how they choose to face cancer is different. Coming up next episode, Dr. Margaret Fitch is back, along with our incredible guests, to join the conversation and share why taking care of the person as a whole is just as important as treating the disease itself. Please share the Facing Cancer Together podcast with anyone in your life facing a cancer diagnosis or caring for someone who is. And if you're interested in learning more about Look Good, Feel Better and our workshops, visit us at lgfb.ca.
This is Story Studio Network.